Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Tommy D. Duncan III, otherwise known as TD3. And guess who? Special guest tonight. It's Uncle Asar from Austin, Texas, who is going to be my co-host tonight. J.R. Stewart, of course, is still recovering in the VA hospital. So for those of you out there who consider yourself to be prayer warriors, make sure that you pray for him. He should be getting out pretty soon. But in the meantime, we are carrying on, and we have our special guest and author, Pan-Africanist, poet, writer, and probably about two or three other titles. Of course, Uncle Asar has been here before and talked to us about several different things. So we decided to go ahead and bring him on so we can bring in some more intellect brains and comic relief to the show tonight. So it is Wednesday, August the 20th, 2025. And if it is Wednesday night, what is it, Uncle Asar?
Black Men Speak.
There we go. There we go. All right, folks, I want to thank you guys for joining us this evening. For those of you who have not done so, please join the chat line. We want to thank Cousin Audrey K, who's already joined us on the chat line. We got Miss Tanya. Hey, y'all is on the line as well. And we have got a lot to talk about this evening. So we're not going to spend too much time goofing around, and we're going to get right to it. We do have a condolence that we need to shout out to this evening. For those of you who are even football fans, unless you've been out there for a while and know something called the AFL, most of us know the NFL, National Football League. They used to be an American Football League. Well, one of its all-time greats, Lionel Taylor, you may not know this face unless you've been around for a long time, became an ancestor. He was a all-time NFL and Broncos wide receiver who became an ancestor a few weeks ago on August the 5th at the tender age of 89. Taylor was the first great wide receiver in the Denver Broncos history, playing for the team in the old American Football League from 1960 to 1966. He still ranks in team history in reception, receiving, and in fifth in touchdown receptions. And considering he's fourth in receptions and receiving and fifth in touchdown receptions, after all this time, over 60 years, and considering how the league has moved from a run-oriented league to a pass-oriented league, this brother was doing something. All that being said, he was part of the first group of players ever put into the Broncos Ring of Honor or Ring of Fame in 1984, one of the first 5 receivers in team history to earn that honor all time. And in 1961, he became the first receiver in professional football history to post 100 catches in a season, very rare for that period of time in the 1960s. Following his playing career, he went into coaching with the Pittsburgh Steelers, helping lead them to 2 Super Bowls, 9 and 10. He also held coaching roles with the Rams, Oregon State University, and Texas Southern University, in which he was a head coach from 1984 to 1988, originally from Kansas City, Missouri. Born in 1935, he was very well traveled, grew up in West Virginia, and we definitely want to give our condolences to the football world, his family, and those who knew and loved him. So just want to, of course, honor our ancestors and make sure that they are recognized, beyond earth. So let's continue to move forward. For those of you out there who may be looking for a vehicle, I don't know if you heard today, but Hertz Rental Car recently joined forces with Amazon to sell pre-owned vehicles. For those of you who don't know that, that means used cars. Expanded its retail footprint to give millions of online shoppers access to its rental fleet. Hertz announced today it will sell used cars through Amazon Autos for any of those of you who may have heard of that, the e-commerce giant's vehicle marketplace. Customers in Dallas, Houston, LA, and Seattle will be the first to participate in the programs. Buyers within 75 miles of those cities can browse Hertz's inventory online, e-sign paperwork, and pick up their car at a Hertz location. The program is eventually expected to expand to nearly 50 locations nationwide or so. Bro, if you're trying to pick up another car, you might want to check Hertz, get your...
Now, if they were giving them away, I'd be first in line. I'm not looking for a car note, insurance, and all of that. No, man.
Just saying. I understand. So for those of you out there, pass it along to your friend, somebody who has a car and wants a second one, needs a car, or whatever that might look like, you can now go to Amazon, especially if you are in those markets, Dallas, Houston, LA, and Seattle. And of course, this comes upon Hertz, who actually filed for bankruptcy in 1920, right around the pandemic. We won't get into the politics of what happened, but they have still not recovered financially from filing bankruptcy. They lost, I think, $2.9 billion in 2024. So they are figuring out how they can continue to bring in revenue to the company. So, of course, me being an old Hertz guy, when I used to travel quite a bit, we wish them the best of luck, and we will see what happens from there. All right, next, for those of you who are tennis fans, or let's just say that you might be Serena Williams fans, guess what? She has been honored by Mattel, the Mattel company, who is celebrating Venus Williams with a new Barbie inspired by the tennis icon's trailblazing career. Make sure we get that up. The release nods to her landmark 2007 season when she won another Grand Slam title and led the fight for equal prize money in professional tennis players among men and women. At that time, men won a lot more money than the women did, and she fought for pay equity with women and men players at that point in time. So a lot of these other folks who are playing now can thank her for that. Don't be lost on the history. That same year, she became a 5-time Wimbledon champion and the first woman to secure equal pay at the top level tournament. Williams, now 45, shared that in growing up. She was taught, I'm pretty sure by her dad, Richard, that anything is possible with hard work and perseverance. And the doll itself is styled with pieces that reflect her 2007 triumph, including a green gem necklace, similar to the one she wore during her win. So for those of you out there with little girls who want a Barbie doll, go out there and get the Serena Williams doll. What you think about Uncle Saul? Venus getting a doll.
Yeah, man. I first let me say, I've always thought that Venus was hot. Long chocolate frame and everything. That's my spec. But as far as I mean, I love black women. But as far as the Barbie thing, Barbie is a white girl, and I feel some kind of way about it. I feel like, why we talk about black entrepreneurship and all this type of thing, black capitalism. Nobody can't create a black doll to rival Barbie. So they're saying that it's an inspiration, but Barbie is a white girl. That's what it brings to mind, or at least for us of a certain age. And I don't see it. For me, it's just a continuation of the European standard of beauty. Although Venus never wore natural hair, of course the doll has whatever kind of hair, but I want to see a black girl doll. You know what I'm saying? Some locks, afro, a mini fro,
Venus didn't have no fro.
Fade or something.
Venus didn't have no fro.
That's what I'm. Yeah.
Well, you mean honoring somebody else?
But yeah, I mean, for me, it's just a.
So you mean honoring somebody else?
Yeah, gotcha. That's all it's doing for me. Yeah, it's honoring somebody else. And that whole Barbie pink thing this other summer and all the sisters wearing pink, you're honoring somebody else.
Yeah, this is true. I would agree with that.
I wasn't really into that.
That was a pretty good money grab, with the Barbie movie coming out, Barbie and Ken, that kind of thing. And I understand, they have to be validated. There's a lot of fragility out there, and not just on the female gender, but the male gender side. They've been validated for the next 3.5 years now. They have been validated to the moon. And so, of course, the feminine side has to have their validation. I think that was $1 billion franchise, I guess, with that Barbie movie. I didn't go see it, but I get your point.
And just to date ourselves, I'm gonna date both of us because we're the same age. Growing up, I had, now they call them action figures, but they were dolls, and I had male dolls. Yep. I actually had a Evel Knievel doll. I had the original G.I. Joe doll with the beard and the Kung Fu grip. They were both white. But at the same time, I had another doll called, I think his name was Big Jack. It was a brother. Yeah. And my mother made sure it was intentional.
I never saw a Big Jack doll.
I had a black doll, action figure. Okay. I had a black action figure. Yeah, man.
I never heard of Big Jack now. I had the,
Big Jack.
I had the G.I. Joe, I had the Rock'em Sock'em robots, but
Right.
I didn't, I didn't see no Brother Dolls in my store. In Target or JC Bell, they didn't have no Walmart back then, but I don't remember seeing no dolls.
They had Kmart.
The closest I had was Army men, and the Army men were all green, but I just imagined they were black. What I didn't know, of course, is that they were sending all the brothers out to the front line to get killed first.
Exactly.
For me,
Exactly.
So
funny thing. You talk about sending the brothers out to the front line. The neighborhood I grew up in, Bryan, the nickname was Little Vietnam back in the 70s. That's how rough it was.
I remember Bryan being rough, but God dog, Little Vietnam. That's real rough. That's tough.
Yeah.
But anyway, congratulations to Venus Williams. We wish you the best of luck. I mean, I guess, the exposure is great. She is, I didn't realize she was still playing. My mom told me that she was in some tournament about a week ago. She didn't get very far, but she's still playing at 45. So I was shocked that she was still playing. But, but the history, especially for the current generation of young people who they did not grow up seeing Venus and Serena play, folks in their teens and maybe early 20s, the history may be lost on them. Hopefully they get the messaging other than just a doll, and they understand the impact that they had on sports, and really that our community has on practically everything that we have a real opportunity to impact, whether it's golf, whether it's tennis, football, basketball, even hockey. It's lost that we had some brothers playing hockey way back in the day that we don't know.
We were very, especially in Canada, and we were very instrumental in introducing different aspects to the game. And one technique was where the goalie drops to the ground to block the shot.
Yes.
That was introduced by our
brother. I did not know that.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We bad.
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna always bring some swagger to the game.
That's right.
It was funny because I remember.
And you talk about.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I remember when Venus and then Serena started playing, and the analysts, the commentators were dogging them because they were very young, energetic, and they didn't mind making noise when they were on the court. And so when they were going, they were really dogging them out pretty bad, but they were winning so much they couldn't deny them. And now everybody's doing that, but it's lost. And just the swagger that they brought to the game has revolutionized the sport. And quite frankly, with a few exceptions, it's just not as exciting as it was. It's just like when Tiger ended up really kind of falling by the wayside. It's just not exciting to check out the game because they bring that extra level of energy.
Absolutely. We bring that extra level of energy to everything we do. You mentioned she was playing at 45. They talking about pickleball now, and I'm like, I'm not getting on that court.
Yeah.
Not at my age. I'm not getting out there.
I've heard of
pickleball. I'm strictly on the treadmill.
Yeah, I've heard of pickleball. I've never seen it, but I've heard it's a thing now. So who knows?
It's a thing.
Who knows? All right, let's go ahead and move on to our next story. Kind of what I might call a kind of an interesting story that kind of turned into something interesting for me. So it looks like one of the presidents of one of our HBCUs in the Northeast, Delaware State University, by the name of Tony Allen, was recently charged with driving under the influence, and it wasn't books, unfortunately, according to the Delaware Online. Allen was driving in a personal vehicle in July, allegedly. When this DUI incident happened, his blood alcohol level was purportedly at 1.5 times the legal limits in Delaware. A Delaware State University spokesperson said Allen had no comment and intends to respect and cooperate with the legal process. During his tenure, however, over the last several years, the university has experienced expansive growth and ranks 9th in the U.S. News and World Report among the 10 top HBCUs in the country. He facilitated the acquisition of Wesley College, in which Delaware inherited 50 acres, 21 buildings, and 14 academic programs. And Allen started his career actually as a speechwriter for then Senator Joe Biden, serving from 1997 to 2000. He was later appointed by President Joe Biden to serve as the chair of the president's board of advisors to HBCUs just a year after Allen became president of Delaware State. And something I did not know for you football fans out there, he was responsible for hiring Deshaun Jackson, who was an all-star wideout in the NFL with the Eagles and the Washington Now Commanders as the head coach for the Delaware State football team. So even though, I was looking through it, I was like, okay, the brother's been doing his thing for several years. And, as Eddie King Jr. said, it's a crime I have a little drink every now and again. So, so I guess, this made news. But, it looks like the brother's been doing some good things at Delaware State. You just got to, be careful depending on what neighborhood you're in and get stopped because, folks got a target on their back regardless.
Exactly.
Of, and that's the key thing. Now, we're not talking about what is the former owner of the Indianapolis Colts who got stopped, coked out, literally, cocaine out, the former CEO of the Indianapolis Colts, or we ain't talking about the man got, convicted for like 34 felonies. We ain't saying that. We ain't saying man is doing anything. We're not talking about 34 convictions. We ain't talking about he been bankrupt 6 times or nothing like that. Man just had a drink.
Sexual assault, the whole nine, right?
Exactly. But he's in the news. All that being said, I'm pretty sure that this will go away. He seems to be doing pretty well. And quite frankly, even though it was kind of under peculiar circumstances, I'm glad I found out about this because I didn't know anything about the brother. And, some of the good work that he's been doing, just got to be careful in terms of what you're doing because the other side of this is, being in the wrong place. You could hit somebody, be in an accident, lose your life, or somebody else loses their life. So you have to be very careful as to what's going on. So I'm sure this will go away.
Any of us as black men, we're under threat when we leave the house. That's number one. We talk about having the conversation with young black males, young brothers, and that type of thing. So he knows he's a high profile brother. Why would you even take the chance? For me, again, at our age, I party at home. I'm not trying to go out and spend, for what I like to drink, it's going to be $20 a shot, and it's going to be half a shot at that. So I party at home. And if I do go somewhere, there's Uber. Why even take the chance is what I'm saying. We're under a microscope. Take precautions before you even leave the house. How am I going to navigate this world today? So I think that's very remiss for him to be such a high profile and accomplished brother doing good things, like you said, in the community and everything. That's just a lapse in judgment.
Irresponsible lapse in judgment. And you have to understand, people are watching you, not just the po-po, but young people, folks who are coming up. And, ultimately, you got to be responsible to them as well because you are a role model and a figure that they're going to be patting themselves out.
Whether you want to be or not, you're a role model. Deal with
it. Yeah, absolutely. So with that being said, we will move on to our next story. Of course, the Donald Duck is in the news every day. And now he is called for the firing of Fed Governor Lisa Cook, who, by the way, for folks who didn't know, again, this is a great opportunity to give some exposure to someone that you probably didn't know. This week, Donald Duck Trump called for Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook to resign following allegations from a Trump ally that Cook made false statements on mortgage applications. The move comes as Trump is in a high-pressure campaign to get the Fed to lower interest rates. Cook, who was appointed to the Fed board by then President Joe Biden in 2022, voted with the majority of her colleagues to hold interest rates steady this last month, the last several months prior to that, which of course is at the ire of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Last week, Bill Pulte, P-U-L-T-E, who oversees mortgage giants Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, sent a letter to Attorney General Pam Bondi, who seems to be after everybody, calling for an investigation into Cook over a pair of mortgage applications she filed in 2021, basically saying she said that both of them were going to be her primary residence. Of course, you can only have one. And so she's calling foul. And, at the end of the day, of course, Trump goes to Twitter and says Cook must resign right now. And of course, Lisa, being a sister, says absolutely not. I ain't going no place. You can't fire me, and I ain't going no place. So, you know,
Yeah,
this is
I'm sorry. The piece I read, he said the reason he wants her to resign is that she falsified bank documents and property records to acquire more favorable loan terms. That sounds familiar. Wasn't he
we
convicted on that
familiar.
very thing?
He was,
Really? Come on. But you know what this
yeah,
is? You know what this is? This is another case of what the sister Lorraine Daniel Favor Daniel says, WEI, white, entitled, and incompetent. They want to put
yeah,
somebody in there who don't know what they're doing, has no credentials, don't need to be there, but that's going to do their bidding. So that's all that's about, man. She's a black woman, accomplished black woman. You know, I get tired of him talking about our sisters and brothers saying low IQ individual. That's just, that's a cold word. Talks about the sister Jasmine Crockett from your neck of the woods.
yeah.
The sister is so, you know what I'm saying? How we talk about twice as good. We're quadruple what you are, what you can do, and then you come out of your mouth and you can't make a sentence, and then you call people low IQ individuals. Come on, man.
Well, again, he's got
This
a
is a
name
family
for
show, right?
everybody.
I can't.
Yeah,
This is a family
he's
show.
got a
Okay.
name. He's got a name for everybody, and basically he just puts something out there until something
He's a
sticks,
child.
until something goes with it. So again, that's kind of a part of his MO. That's what he does, just to get people to be distracted among, of course, other things. Him having to do with the Epstein files that he wants people to forget about, and or he wants to go away. And so he'll throw anything out there in order to try to see if he can get something to
Diversion.
stick. You know, as Eddie would say, the banana in the tailpipe trick.
Everybody.
You know,
We ain't falling for it.
no bananas in the tailpipe. So, and all that being said, for those of you, of course, he was also calling for Jerome Powell to step down. And the Fed runs independently of the
Right.
executive branch. I mean, the president of the United States does nominate the Fed chairman. However, they do not have the authority to fire them without cause, which means it has to be something extremely bad. A lot, extremely bad for them to be able to get rid of the Fed chairman. And quite frankly, with all the stuff that we look at on his rap sheet, he just really doesn't have any place or position to talk about anybody doing anything that is purportedly criminal. Allegedly, of course. Well, no,
Allegedly.
actually, it's not even allegedly with him.
He was
It's
convicted.
adjudicated
Right.
and convicted. So, all that being said, we'll see what happens with this. Again, another distraction, another day. We'll see what happens. I know, of course, he's trying to lower interest rates and looking at it economically. Why is that? Because everything that's going on with tariffs, nobody wants to talk about inflation. The markets have been doing pretty good. The stock market's been doing decent. Last couple of days has been a bloodbath. But overall, Main Street, people have been having a tough time. People have been losing jobs, hundreds of thousands of jobs. Prices have been going up, even though, from my understanding, somebody was supposed to deal with inflation on day one. It's month 7, and inflation is still going up. But with that being said, one thing that we don't understand about interest rates being lower is a good thing. It does stimulate people to spend. But what happens if you're an economist? Demand and supply. People start spending a lot of money. That drives up demand. That drives up cost of everything. And so that's going to send inflation even higher. So what the Fed is looking for is for things to slow down and the economy to stabilize before it raises interest rates so it doesn't jack up prices. And that's the thing that people are not talking about. So with that being said, we wish her the best of luck. I'm pretty sure there's going to be a couple more days of this, and then there'll be another story in the news about someone else. And talking
And
about
in the meantime, he and his family are heading the biggest grift of a politician in America's history. That's all they've been doing is making money off the presidency and that type of thing. Not that I'm, supporting the American government, but I just wanted to say he's a criminal, and that's not even allegedly. He's a criminal. He's a crook.
There's no way. Come on now, he's not a criminal, right? They wouldn't elect a criminal to president. Not in this country.
They elected slave owners president. Why not a crook?
Well, this is true. However, it
A
wasn't illegal
grifter.
back then. It wasn't illegal to be a
Well,
slave owner back
apparently grifting is not illegal now because he's doing it with the help of the rest of the government, the Supreme Court, and everybody else.
then. Gotcha. So,
That's just my opinion.
I understand. Okay, we got a couple of comments on the line. Good evening, Brother Frederick V. Roberts, Esquire, out of Prairie View, Texas. Want to thank you for joining us this evening. Oh, somebody laughed at your big Jack doll, so I guess there's somebody else who remembered the big Jack doll. That was Miss Tanya. We didn't have it. We didn't have the stores in my neighborhood. All right, another sister, of course, targeted not directly, but was impacted by something that happened at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. We have a Texas lawmaker. Many of you probably have heard of Nicole Collier. If you didn't before, you do now. Texas House Democrats refused to meet legislative chambers in an act of resistance to the demand for finding 5 seats out of Texas that they can take to the conservative side, and they're in the process of doing that. However, State Representative Nicole Collier of Fort Worth said in an interview that she would sleep on a House floor until Labor Day if she had to, but she ain't going for it. So since Monday of this week, Collier has entered into a new existence, eating, sleeping, and working from the locked chamber in the Texas State Legislature after she refused to acquiesce to Republican demands that Democrats agreed to a round-the-clock security escort to be released from the building. Otherwise, they're there to do their job. And of course, given some context to this, most of you know the Democrats jumped out of state in order to do a quorum break to fight against the finding those 5 seats for Donald Duck at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And that's primarily in order to ensure that nothing happens in midterm so he loses the House or the Senate next year. And that's why he's looking for 5 seats. So with that being said, Nicole Collier, several other folks broke quorum. They left the state. Many of them just came back. However, they basically tried to force them to sign an affidavit agreeing to literally have police or security detail to follow them every place they went so they would not break quorum again, because Republicans, of course, plan to pass this gerrymandered housing bill that will, in essence, I guess, find 5 seats out of predominantly non-white areas, and or gerrymandering it, in essence, I think, eliminating somewhere between 2 or 3 different seats that are predominantly black areas in Dallas and Houston. In essence, I think that would consolidate 4 representatives to 2 representatives in the state house. I believe 1 Hispanic as well. So it'll be very interesting to see what this ends up looking like. But I think, unfortunately, since they're back in the House, it's just a matter of time. Really, there's nothing that the Democrats themselves can do to stop it. If they are all in play and have a quorum to vote on it, all they can do is kind of extend it. What are your thoughts on this, Uncle Sam?
So my question is, I've never read Robert's Rules of Order, but is it against the rules to not have a quorum to walk out? I mean, is that something that's not done? Okay, yeah, so I mean, they're breaking the law. The Republicans are breaking the law, trying to give me a babysitter. That's the idea. So my mind goes to enablers. Who are these agents, these DPS agents that are willing to follow people around, holding them by the waist? And that goes to a larger question of enabling Donald Duck, as you call him, doing the things that he's doing, like deporting people to countries they've never been to before. All the crazy-ish that he's doing, he's being enabled. Why isn't somebody in a position of authority saying, nah, man, you can't do that. Here's the Constitution. You have to follow the Constitution. I mean, the dude is talking about running for a 3rd time and nobody's saying anything. What is the Supreme Court saying? I mean, I don't understand what's going on.
It's a power. I mean, it's a power grab, and what we have to understand is, of course, now he has control of the executive branch, the legislative branch, the judicial branch. Of course, Texas is also a red state as well, so of course they're going to fall in line. And so it's not about the law, it's not about the Constitution. It's about power and maintaining power once you get it. And so that's what their focus is: maintaining
Right.
power.
Right. But if it's
So
not about the law, then what is it? I mean, even within even if it's about power, it's about you have to do it within the law. But I say all this to say they're telling us something, right? So we should be listening. They're telling us something very clearly.
well, what what they're telling us is the law is for y'all, not us.
Right. Precisely.
I mean, that's the short story. I mean, that's the long and short of the story. So it will be very interesting. Eventually, this is going to come to an end. Republicans will have their way. Eventually, they will get their 5 seats. However, of course, you've got California, Gavin Newsom, who is the governor of California, saying, okay, if y'all want to play that game, we can play that too. And so he is
Right.
going to figure out how to neutralize the 5 seats that Donald Duck has asked for out of the state of Texas and get 5 more seats out of California. And then it's going to be some back and forth, which kind of perverts the whole process. But ultimately, I mean, what else are you going to do? I mean, you're going to have to, if you're fighting outside of the bound, if you have somebody fighting you outside of the boundaries, you can't stay within the boundaries.
Right.
So it'll be a
Let me
fun
ask you
fight.
this: where did you get the name? Where did you get Donald Duck from? I hit the Donald part, but you could have
If,
called him
if,
Dumb Donald
if,
from the
if,
Cosby
if,
Kids.
if you look at them long enough, you'll get it. If you look at them long enough, you'll see where I get Donald Duck from. Jimmy, JR used to call Joe Biden Sleepy Joe. That's what he called him, Sleepy Joe. But if you look at him long enough, yeah, Donald Duck, because it is kind of a cartoon.
Right,
It's
right.
kind of a cartoon and kind of a joke. But if you look at
But
him long enough, it looks like Daffy Duck.
my vote is still for Dumb Donald. There's no, you don't
Hey,
have to look at him long enough for nothing.
he calls people names. Hey, you got to take it to get. If you're gonna give it, you
That's
got to
right.
be able to take
That's right.
it. All right,
So,
let's go ahead and
and I guess
move
because
forward.
he's quacking on Twitter, so
Yes,
that's even more so Donald Duck.
yeah, exactly.
Twitter. That's
Yeah,
it.
exactly. So let's keep moving forward. I don't know if we have any other responses here. Oh, I'm sorry. Uh, Actually, Brother Roberts out of Prairie, you said 34 convictions. Maybe I got the number wrong. He said 34 convictions. Let me see here. Zamil's unedited truth. Oh, Zamil's unedited truth. He's a criminal. Well, he's a criminal in chief right now, if that's what you want to call it. 5 eliminating five black seats. 2 in Houston, 2 in Dallas, and I forgot the other one. One is Hispanic seat. I thought it was. I couldn't remember whether it was 2 black seats in Houston and Dallas, but yes, it seems like it's 2 seats in Houston, 2 seats in Dallas, and I don't know where the one, but I think one is Hispanic seat. The Republicans are breaking the law. Okay, the maps work. Okay, so the maps have been passed. Well, have they been passed by the Senate? I don't know. I know they were having some debate in the House. I don't know if they have been passed by the House and the Senate, both, and then of course it would have to go to the governor on wheels. So, and let's see what else we have. If all of the Democrats would have walked out of the quorum, they could have never passed the maps. However, 2 of them stayed back. Yeah, this is true. However, and when we say walked out of the quorum, they could have, from my understanding, Senate. The Senate is also potentially in play as well because you have enough Democrats in the Senate to walk out as well. So we will see what happens on this. Ephraim Zamil, it's about the power, and they don't care about the law. Exactly. They only care about keeping their seat, and the law does not apply to you. Exactly right. See what we got. Brother Roberts, the Democrats are weak. That is why the two senators stay. Yeah, that's true. Now, I will give you that one, Brother Roberts. The Democrats are weak. They are feckless. Uh, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with trying to play by the rules, but when you're getting slobber knocked, you're going to have to come up with a different fight. And I will give this to the Republicans. They know how to fight an unfair fight. They don't care about the rules unless it benefits them. But when the rules don't apply to them or doesn't benefit them, they go outside of it. So it is what it is. Okay, so Robert says it passed from the Senate committee, and the decision by the House then sends back to the Senate for a final vote. So it looks like it would have to pass the House, and then it would go to the Senate, which is possibly another move by Senate Democrats if they want to delay it. Ultimately, it's just a delay tactic, and getting more exposure at the end of the day is going to eventually still happen, but they're just trying to push it for as long as they possibly can. And I understand that folks may look one way or another at the value of voting, but that does determine where the money is going. That does determine where the power is going. And if you decide not to vote, that is fine. But you're talking about billions that will or will not be allocated towards your streets, that will not be allocated towards your resources, that will not be allocated towards your health care, and all of those things that do affect your daily lives. So you got to figure it out. Okay, say next up is the Senate. Jasmine Crockett is calling for the Senate to walk out. Yes, that is exactly what she's doing. She's asking for Senate Democrats to walk out as well in order to delay a vote on it. All right, it will be entertainment, and that's what it seems like this is really coming right down to is just entertainment value at this point. But it's a power play. It's just a matter of time before this happens. So let's keep moving on to our next. Yes.
Real quick, you can tell that you're a Texas football player. You use the term that many people don't understand. You said slobber knock. Slobber knock. You have to be a Texas football player to understand what that is.
Okay, that's a Texas thing. Okay, I didn't know other folks that use that. Yeah,
they use that term.
We use that. We use that. So, all right, we're going to do a brief conversation on a couple of international stories, and then we will call it a wrap. You know, we've talked over the last several years about what's been going on in Haiti. And again, the historical significance, and you can speak to this, is I don't think that you can give enough historical significance to Haiti, the impact that it had on the United States, it doubling in size, the impact that it had on the really the elimination of chattel slavery in the United States and so many other areas. But of course, when the Africans in Haiti fought for and won their independence from France with inferior weapons, but with intelligence and resources, the French, abetted and aided by the United States, agreed that Haiti would never know peace. And to this day, it still has not. And so there is a lot of continued turmoil. Whenever there is a president who actually begins to fight for the people, they are either displaced or, like Joyce's Moiselle, they are murdered one way or another.
Removed, eliminated.
Exactly.
Neutralized.
More recently, there is an outfit, a security firm, at least that's what they call it. I might call them mercenaries, called Blackwater. Yeah.
But they changed the name, Vectus Global.
Oh, so they changed the name.
Yeah, I think it was Blackwater, and then he changed it to Z, which was like an X and an E, and now it's Vectus Global. But it's the same mercenary outfit, so yeah.
Gotcha. All that being said, is there's always this talk about gangs in Haiti, violence in Haiti, sexual assault, all of these things going on in Haiti. And of course, Western media always points to Haitians not being able to govern Haitians. But if you look at the true historical context of it, it's really the European powers, primarily France, but the United States and other countries, that have kept Haiti destabilized to ensure that they have no functioning government, to ensure that folks who are so-called leading the country are not acting in the best interest of the people. And to the point where now in 2025, but it's been going on for at least, I think, 2 years, they have no functioning government
Mm-hmm.
that is supported by the people.
Mm-hmm.
The executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch have all been wiped away. And those, what some might call handkerchief heads, who are there have been chosen by Europeans who don't have their best
Right.
interests at heart in order to maintain protecting the resources in Haiti. Because what people don't talk about is not only Africa, but Haiti has resources as well that other
Absolutely.
folks want to get their hands on. And so to ensure that they can keep access to those resources unfettered, they have to keep the country destabilized. And that's what they're looking at. All that being said, Eric Prince, who is the founder of, I guess, former Blackwater, now whatever the name is that I was not aware of,
Vectors
now
Global.
is deploying 200 what they call personnel, mercenaries, as a part of a 1 year deal to quell gang violence. And I won't even say gang violence. I'll just say so-called violence of
Mm-hmm.
the people by the people. The deployment is meant to help the government of Haiti recover territory seized and controlled by what I'll call an armed militia.
Mm-hmm.
They provide logistics, infrastructure, security, and defense, run by Prince, who also is a major donor to the current president of the United States of America. So this
And
is a
he's the brother of Betsy DeVos, the former education secretary under
yeah,
Trump.
I forgot about that. I
So
forgot
we see
about
how
that.
the
So
elites of the world operate. Again, it's a huge grift. That's all it is.
exactly, because ultimately, with the resources there in Haiti, which by the way was the wealthiest province, otherwise the wealthiest revenue generator in the world for France at the time that they had control
Mm-hmm.
over Haiti, but still has valuable resources that a lot of other countries want access to. And so, again, the distraction, the banana in the tailpipe is gang violence, murder, a lack of governance when it's actually outside interests that are destabilizing government
Mm-hmm.
and maintenance of that country. What
Part
is
of their mission is said long term long term role in advising Haiti's government on how to restore revenue collection capabilities. Now, what does that have to do with saving people's lives? When I was living
nothing?
in Nigeria and Ebola came to Nigeria, I wrote a piece. They talked about how the language that the Obama administration was using in terms of sending assistance to West Africa to deal with Ebola. All of it was about military. All of it was about American interest and security. This is the same type of thing. What are you talking about? Long term, how to restore revenue collection capabilities? Those are ulterior motives. They're not trying to. Obama should have been sending doctors and nurses and PPE, personal protective equipment, that type of thing. But instead, you're sending soldiers. That makes no sense. And so in this case, you're talking about revenue collection. The people are
For
living
who?
outside. Well, yeah, exactly. What are you talking about? So that tells you right there that it's exactly what you're saying in terms of resources and minerals and that type of thing.
So I don't know. I mean, you have very broad spectrum in terms of what you see, not just in the Western Hemisphere, but the Eastern Hemisphere, because I know you keep tabs on what's going on in many of the African countries as well. This is very similar to what we see on the continent, except, of course, in the Western Hemisphere. And, quite frankly, because of the destabilization of infrastructure and governance structure, I don't see any end to this.
Well, we need courageous people like the three brothers of the Sahel, the three wise men, as they are called, Abdurrahmani Chiani, Semi Goita, and of course Ibrahim Traore, who will
Right.
have the courage to stand up against Western powers, and kick them out. I gave a talk at the LBJ school here at UT a couple of years ago in a class on U.S. foreign policy in Africa, and when it came to the question of specifically of U.S. foreign policy in Africa, my answer was get the hell out, because you're not there
Number
for
one.
the interest. Right. Number one, get the hell out. You're not there for the interest of the people. You're there for American interests, and that is to destabilize governments or plant puppet regimes to make it where you will continue to rape and pillage the continent of its resources while the people languish. And so we need courageous brothers and sisters to stand up to that and just say, get the hell out.
Well, the WHO, in terms of kicking them out, because the benefit that the Sahel states in West Africa have is that they at least had a governance structure or an organized military apparatus in order to be able to carry through on one, taking back control of the country, and then of course setting up a governance structure that is beginning to work, for the people. I know that you've seen this just as well as I have, that they've gone from $1 billion in revenue to I think $20 billion in revenue from their gold resources within just a year. The question is, who's able to do that in Haiti when everybody is shooting at each other?
So here's one of the things. Haiti is an island.
Correct.
But yet and still, the sister Jemima Pierre, she Haitian professor.
Oh,
sister,
yeah.
and
Brilliant,
she talks about the parent. Yeah, absolutely, brilliant and gorgeous, right? She talks about their paramilitary, because the type of weapons that they have. Haiti is an island. Where is this coming from? It's the same thing in West Africa.
The United States. The United States.
Exactly. You're setting up NGOs and aid organizations. Again, why are you sending military? AFRICOM. You're going in and you're giving weapons to and fomenting the terrorists to destabilize the country. This is what you're doing. How is Haiti getting these weapons? And it's an island. They're not producing them there. They can't even fend for themselves. So how are they producing weapons? Because you're sending them there.
Correct. And that's the whole key. And that's part of the strategy. Because, at the end of the day, the folks who are developing strategy from Haiti are not Haitians.
Right.
So right. It is what they call a very, very slippery slope. I hate to say that the best thing that can happen is that it all implodes, so they're forced to get out. But the question is, what are the other options in terms of forcing them to get out so that they can reestablish home rule, which is really the only answer. Home rule is the only answer.
Right. Well,
Haitians governing. Exactly.
Yeah, it's not going to end tomorrow or the next day or whatever. But just like, even in this country, we can't stop fighting. There's you just don't. It may not seem like there's something at the end of the road, the end of the tunnel, whatever metaphor you want to use, but you don't stop fighting if you want to be free. The brother Jared Ball always quotes at the end of his podcast. I can't even think of the brother's name now. The brother from Black Panther. They made the movie Judas and the Black Messiah. What was the cat's name? Fred Hampton. He always said, peace if you're willing to fight for it. So if you're willing to fight, if you want to be free, you got to fight for it, man. It's not going to be tomorrow. That's why they call it the struggle. It's not easy.
True. All right, let's go to our last story for the evening. I think that's probably all we got time for, because this one I think is going to be a little bit juicy. We talked about this on Black Men Speak not too long ago. Microsoft founder Bill Gates, about a month ago, made news when he announced that he planned to give most of his wealth to the continent of Africa in support of programs for health and education. Now he's making news again, announcing plans to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on pregnancy prevention programs in Africa, vis-a-vis the branding of family planning. In a fireside chat with two other billionaires, Aliko Dangote, the richest man in Africa purportedly, and Mohammed Mo Ibrahim, a UK billionaire born in Sudan, they proclaimed that as Africa's population expands, the continent needs to create jobs and keep up with food demand, stating that the most controversial topic, can Africa help develop sustainable communities and cities, is through family planning. And of course, depending on where on the continent you're going, what country is, folks are responding to this a little bit different. And of course, Kenya buys into it, but Kenya, that's what they do. But the sister, who is the president of Namibia, she's like, no, we're not having that. And
And Daitwa,
ultimately,
Nandi and Daitwa.
ex- exactly. And so this is a very interesting story, because one of the things that, statistically, I thought was quite intriguing, and kind of doing some research on that, is based upon the growing population on the African continent. It is expected that population is expected to reach 2.4 billion with a B by 2050, doubling its population in 2016. And Gates himself estimated that 50% of all newborns worldwide will be born on the continent of Africa by the end of the century. Very eye opening when you consider the implications of that population growth, because guess what countries are depopulating and are not growing as fast? European populations.
Right.
And so when you go to Portugal, when you go to Spain, when you go to a lot of other countries, very low fertility rates. And I took the opportunity to research who are the top 20 countries with the highest fertility rates. 18 out of 20 were in Africa. 20 of the top fertility countries in terms of fertility rate, number of children, 18 out of 20 were on the continent of Africa. The problem, which I do understand in theory, is how do you house this many people? How do you feed this many people? Where are the jobs going to be for this many people? There aren't enough jobs there for those on the African continent with an education, because you have a lot of brothers and sisters who are getting a good education, but you can't find jobs. But guess why that is? Because they continue to get robbed, raped, and pillaged by
Right.
outside interests. And so there are no jobs for them, because they're for other folks. And the reality of it is, this is going to be very interesting politically and economically, because their biggest problem is not population growth. Their biggest problem is being exploited by
Right.
European interests, which prevent
Right.
them from being able to grow economically, to provide the jobs, to be able to provide the economic resources, to provide the food, the housing, and all those other things. And as it pertains to this growth concern that Gates and other folks have, does Africa have a population problem, or does Africa have an exploitation problem?
They have an exploitation problem. And one of the things about Gates is that, I mean, he's a representative of his people. And as we're talking about, Africa has the youngest population in the world. China is aging. The rest of Europe is, like you said, they're on the decline, regressing in terms of birth and that type of thing. So you have what, like, while I was living in Nigeria in 2014, the largest population segment of the population was 19. 19. So those are young people. So the jobs would be there if there were the money there and the resources there. There's so many things that need to be done. I mean, the most fertile ground, and you're talking about how to feed people, it's the most fertile ground on earth.
It
You
is.
can feed everybody if you leave them alone. You see what I'm saying?
But guess
So, but
what?
going back to yeah, but
This is
going
the
back to
thing.
Gates.
Mhm.
Mhm.
No,
No, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead.
The interesting thing about it is that these countries on the African continent that have the most fertile ground in the world, they're not even able to feed themselves with the food that they produce.
Right, right. And that's one of the
Real
things
talk.
Sankara did. He had Burkina Faso back then in the 80s feeding itself. They're importing rice and they're growing rice. It makes no sense. But going back to Gates, and I wanted the key word when we're talking about population growth or family planning, but the key word or the key concept is sterilization. Because along with this birth control thing, which is nothing more than sterilization, that's what they're doing. Let's be clear, is this whole GMO thing, genetically modified organism. You're basically sterilizing seeds. So the farmer can't use seeds over again. They can't keep their own seeds. Then you have to go buy new seeds. So you basically want to sterilize the world, and that's what the European does. That's what the European mind does. Sterilization. That's how you solve problems: is sterilize, or as we said, neutralize, get rid of, just sterilize.
Yeah, it is a scary prospect, but I would agree. And of course, there's, I hope you're not out there saying, well, how could they? There's no way. This is about as old as at least human, at least European history. It's as old as European history. If we look at sterilization that has been done on Africans here in the United States, if you
That's
look
right.
at the continued sterilization on Africans on the continent, Big Pharma
Right.
goes to the African continent for a very
First,
specific reason, to experiment.
testing. Right.
They have a
That's what they're
larger
doing.
pool. They have a larger pool than Africans in the United States or Africans in
And you
South
don't
America.
value our lives as much as European lives. It's just that clear. Absolutely.
Exactly. So, when I saw this initial thing, a story about Gates so-called committing so much of his money to Africa, I was like, there's an agenda behind this. He's not giving his money away because he's kind-hearted towards Africans because they need the money more so than anything else. We don't particularly need your money, to your earlier point. We need y'all to get out of our business.
That's all we need. Keep your money, get out of our business. Stay out of Africa. Get the
Unfortunately,
hell out.
unfortunately for most of our African brothers and sisters, they are being controlled and managed by Europeans, by proxies that they call heads of states,
That's right.
with military apparatuses that are supporting the agenda and the objectives of the European states. That's the problem we're dealing with.
Right.
So, with that being said, we certainly hope that most, if not all, African countries will reject this, just like the sister in Namibia, just like the president in Zambia, as well as done. Because again, if you look at the history on Europeans, benevolent Europeans, we see what happened to the what we call the Native Americans.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We see what happened to our
The
brothers and sisters
Aborigines.
in the Aborigines in Australia. Nobody talks
Mm-hmm.
about the genocide of
Right.
Aborigines in Australia. Nobody
The
talks
same
about
thing
what
with the
happened in
Anunnaki in
India.
Brazil. Wherever they
Exactly.
go, they just want to annihilate people and take, John Henry Clark said it best. He said, and I'm going to use his words. He said, did he say the white man? Did he say the white man? It says the European. The European has always wanted what he didn't have, what someone else had, he couldn't live without and wasn't willing to pay for. And
Wow.
history proves that. That's not conjecture. That's not allegations. History proves that. Oh, well, thank you, Tanya.
All right.
Miss Tanya Hall.
Yep.
But let
Yep.
me say before we finish, man, I appreciate this opportunity to come on here, man. I just want Jimmy to know that I'm not trying to take your place, brother. I'm trying to support the platform. Yeah,
There
and
we go. There we go.
I think I may have done something to Tommy in the past because he brings me on here to embarrass myself, and I can't
What are
just
you
say
talking
no.
about, man?
But
No. Hey, man, I know since you were doing the podcast with our friend in South Africa, man, that every now and again you want to get up here and let it hang loose, man. And it was a good podcast, so you got to go ahead and keep your chops, working. So we had to make sure we get you back here every now and again. And want to thank you, Ms. Tanya. You said love your co-host choice tonight. Awesome, great show, great selection. For co-hosts, we need an encore. All right. Well, of course, we're gonna have brother Uncle Hassan back. But with that being said, we've got 1 minute left, and we want to thank everybody who has joined us this evening. Make sure you haven't done so, that you subscribe to this show. Make sure that you share this with information, and make sure you like this show, so that we can, of course, get all the metrics that we need. And of course, make sure that you join us next week. Continue to keep JR in your prayers. We hope that he will be back very soon from his recovery period. And of course, I want to thank you to my good friend and my brother, Uncle Asar, for joining me as a co-host for tonight's show. Enjoy the rest of the week and join us next Wednesday because, of course, Uncle Asar, if it's Wednesday night,
it's Black Men Speak.
good night, everyone.